So as many of you know, I'm really interested in watches. What I'm also interested in is history, and I think that's a big component to why I enjoy watches so much. So whenever I'm able to combine both watches and history in a video, I always get pretty excited and I always look for ways to do it. So I thought of an interesting idea, and that's what brings us to today's video. So what's going on, everybody? Teddy Baldessar here, and in this video, we're gonna be talking about watches of US presidents. So this specific video, we're only going to be looking at a few of the presidents that I wanted to include. I think this is a two-part series, so please leave comments down below who you want to see in a future video. And I know there's many people from across the world who don't really care about US presidents. So I want to hear other people when talk about world leaders that I should be doing and mentioning in a future video, kind of really talking about people outside of just the United States. So if you have any other recommendations for kind of a world leaders and their watches video, I would love to see comments down below about that. So guys, let's jump into the video. First, we have a president that served in two of the most pressing times in not only the United States, but really in the history of time. By the time of his election in 1933, the United States was amidst the greatest financial depression the country had ever seen. And as he helped lead the US from the Great Depression, he then was confronted with, in his third term, probably the deadliest war, or one of the deadliest wars the world had ever seen, in World War II. The man that I'm referring to is none other than FDR. FDR owned several watches. However, I wanted to choose a piece that I felt was the most unique, a signed Tiffany & Company Movado Triple Calendar. This watch was reported as the last watch that FDR acquired. The watch was made in 1944 and was a reference 44776. The watch changed ownership to that of FDR's son-in-law following a 1944 Christmas gift. However, it was apparently given back to FDR shortly after and was one of the last watches he was seen wearing leading up to his death in 1945. And despite this watch maybe not being a true icon, I thought it was unique enough and attaching itself to a really prominent and very important president in our history of the United States. So I thought it was a good watch to mention as it was unique just like the president himself. Next up, we have a man who was gifted a watch, a Rolex Datejust. Not only was this president the first president ever reported to own a Rolex, but this specific one was even more special. Before we knew him as Mr. President, General Eisenhower was serving as the NATO Commander-in-Chief of Europe. This was when Rolex approached him with a special gift. At the time, Rolex had certified 150,000 officially certified watches. The Datejust, a watch that was released back in 1945, and the specific piece that they were gifting him was the 150,000th certified Rolex watch. The Rolex Datejust was an icon since its conception. It was the first watch with a date complication, and General Eisenhower was perfectly suited to really have this watch and own it, as it was made of gold and it was on a Jubilee bracelet. When Rolex asked if they could personalize it in any way, Eisenhower asked if Rolex could engrave his initials on 5 stars to signify his ranking as a 5-star general. In addition, the case back also featured the date of his delivery to Eisenhower, 12/19/1950, on the case back and engraved with DDE on the outer side of the buckle of the Jubilee bracelet. Our next president was one of the most beloved presidents during the 20th century. And out of any of the presidents, you could argue he had an aura of style that has really never been replicated. I'm of course referring to John F. Kennedy. When looking at President Kennedy, you could tell he was a man of style and great taste. So picking a watch of his is tough. However, there was one piece that he was gifted by Jackie that I thought would probably be the best choice since it's really connected itself to a really infamous day in US history. For their 4th anniversary, Jackie Kennedy gifted President Kennedy a thin Cartier watch in 1957. The watch was a bit different with a circular design, something often not seen in a lot of Cartier watches at the time. In fact, Cartier would often rebrand other watch manufacturers from other Swiss makers and stamp it with their logo. However, despite knowing little of this watch, there's no doubt that it's iconic in its own right, as it was reported that it was the last watch worn by JFK and when it was on his wrist when he was assassinated back in 1963. After arriving to the hospital, the watch was reportedly taken off JFK's wrist and was given back to Jackie. The watch was eventually gifted to JFK's secretary, Evelyn Lincoln. However, despite the watch being iconic as a result of its wearer, it does have a darker connection to his tragic death. So our next president, I thought it was an interesting choice, as it completely embodies the era of the quartz crisis. If you want to learn more about the quartz crisis, I did a couple of videos about this topic. I'll be sure to link to them in the description down below if you are interested in learning more. However, our next president is Gerald Ford, and his watch was a gold-filled LED pulsar. When he was first spotted wearing this watch, it was an eye-catcher and was rather expensive at the time. In fact, the first Seiko Pulsar initially sold for $2,100. And if we adjust that for inflation in 2018, that is over $13,170. So in other words, this watch was expensive, despite being powered by a quartz movement. However, at the time, this was still a new technology. The watch, a reference 3376, was a gift to President Ford and was often seen on his wrist, always eliciting comments and intrigue. And for our last president on part 1 of this presidential watch series, we have a watch that you might not expect from one of the most powerful human beings on the planet. So what do I and George W. Bush have in common? We are both known to enjoy wearing Timex watches. George W. Bush was reported to have worn a couple different Timex watches in his time in the presidential spotlight. First, when running for office in 2000. He was seen wearing a Timex eye control. Since then, it appears that he has made a change to a steel Timex Indiglo with a white face and an American flag at the 12 o'clock position. Can someone say America? And for all of you Ivy League politicians who are struggling to connect with us common men, buy a Timex. It might actually get you some votes. It sure worked for George W. Bush, as he was elected for 2 terms, both in 2000 and in 2004. And I'm sure Timex was the main contributor to that. So guys, like I mentioned, I want to do a part 2 of this series and another version of this series where we look at other prominent world leaders and the watches that they wear. So please leave comments down below about who I should feature in both of those videos. So guys, if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, as that really helps out the channel, as well as subscribing and hitting that bell icon. That is a huge way for our channel to grow and how YouTube really works within their algorithm. So seeing that on my channel is always very helpful in allowing us to grow as a channel. So if you can do that, really appreciate it. Also be sure to follow me on Instagram. That's the best way to stay up to date with watch giveaways. We have 2 watches that we're going to be giving away this month, so be sure to be following me on there. Also be sure to fill out the form down below. If you've already filled it out in past months, you're automatically entered to win all upcoming months going forward. And then finally, if you want to support this channel, if you want to support this new generation of watch lovers that we're trying to foster up here, to check out our Patreon. Any support would be greatly appreciated. We have some amazing perks on there, including phone calls with me. So there's a lot of people I've been talking to, been learning more about just a lot of the people that are a part of this watch community. And it's been a real treat, and really enjoy just making these videos, and the fact that you guys enjoy them just as much as I do in making them is really cool. So guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, be well, and I will see you all very soon.